Today, something long overdue. Of the nearly 100 cars we've reviewed over the past 3 years, it's time for a recap and some judging. It's time to find out just what are the best value, affordable, proper driver's cars that we reviewed so far.
Look at that.
This is our top dozen bang for your buck cars. Yes, just the top 12 cars. The challenge that faced me was to come up with a proper formula that took into consideration not just Mark's and my assessment of each car by our usual criteria, but also each car's technical specs, performance figures, and a realistic price as well, given that many of them are not new. Then mash it all up in the right balance, punch them into a giant spreadsheet, and come up with an empirical score for each one, out of about 100. And I can tell you some of the results have quite surprised me. Now, don't you dare skip ahead to the end. So how is it possible to score completely different cars, to compare a McLaren 600 LT with a Nissan X-Trail or a 50-year-old Dino? Well, I can tell you that on a pure bang for your buck scale, all of those three ended up towards the bottom of the list. Either too expensive or too slow or both. But that doesn't address the emotional side of these cars. 3 years ago, when Mark and I started this channel, we tried to come up with some way of scoring each car. Of course, this was always going to be subjective, but we wanted to have some sort of empirical rating that was both technical and emotional. We started with the 5 Ps, and we gave each car a score out of 5. Performance, not just power, but this covers braking, handling, grip. So for example, the Porsche GT3 scored a 5 because it's just so perfect. And at the other end of the scale was this Hillman Hunter, which was charming, and I don't care that it won the London and Sydney Rally in 1968, it's just a mobile roadblock, scored 1. Presentation, very subjective I know, but we scored these two Ferraris with a 5, for example, the 458 Speciale and the 246 Dino, but we were seriously underwhelmed by the practical but dull Nissan X-Trail. Price, not just how affordable it is, as this also takes into account value for money. This 20-year-old Renault Clio is a star performer. Cheap, still appreciating, so it scored very, very well. And while this one of 16 right-hand drive Mercedes AMG SLS Black Series may or may not be a sound investment, the $1 million plus price tag ensured it got a 1. Practicality, everything from ergonomics, comfort, vision, luggage space, and usability. In terms of day-to-day practicality, cars like the Hyundai i30N tick all the boxes. On the other hand, the brutally fast McLaren 600 LT was good at none of these, and just the thought of parking it at Westfield with all those free-roaming shopping trolleys sends shivers down your spine. Lastly, we had personality, which is all about how the car talks to you as a driver. One of several that got 5 points was the Porsche GT4 RS.
Pure race car.
Right on the white line, rotate the car, like that grip there.
Oh, yeah.
You feel the stability there? I just came in a bit too quick.
A car I hope you get to experience at some point in your life. It is just epic. But strangely, one car that I found to be less than involving was my own Porsche 944, which scored a low 2.5. So there we are, that's what we used to have. Together, as you would have noticed on our reviews to date, we'd end up with a score out of 25. And some cars got over 20, which was very good.
What?
Now this scoring system wasn't bad, but unsurprisingly, a lot of fast, expensive cars tended to end up towards the top. Over time we realised we'd missed some important criteria, particularly affordability and collectability. While we covered price and value, we didn't really cover just how desirable a car is now and in the future. Again, it's pretty subjective, but it's an important factor in choosing a weekend weapon that you're going to keep for a while. Is it likely to go up in value, as the little Clio did over our 7 years of ownership? So collectability was something we introduced. But the big one that we need is how much bang you get for your buck. This is based purely on numbers. The likely realistic price you'll pay for this car here in Australia divided by the 0 to 100 acceleration time. It's torque that puts on a smile on your face. Torque matters much more than outright power. So price divided by acceleration.
3.2 seconds.
So what I've done today is create a fairly complex formula that encompasses all these things. It's my own recipe, but I think it puts everything in the right balance. That's a lot of talking, but I think you understand. Then I punched all the numbers in for every car we reviewed so far to get an overall score out of about 100. You might ask why I bothered. Well, because if I was you or you were me and we were out shopping for a cool weekend warrior car that ticked all the boxes, I would like to know what our top dozen recommendations would be. And I didn't know until now. Now, as you know, we've reviewed quite a range of cars, from mega expensive exotics, hot hatches, classic sports cars, quirky old cars, modern EVs, and way too many Porsches. Now, you know I'm a bit of a Porsche tragic, and the first big surprise, no Porsches made the top dozen, not one. The closest was the cheap and cheerful original Boxster S at number 13. Close, but no cigar. Also, all these cars didn't quite make it. All excellent cars, but they're not in the top dozen. And even though I'm a fan of high-performance electric vehicles, no EVs made it into the top 12 either. I was surprised the Tesla Model 3 Performance didn't make it, but I know that will please a lot of you carbon-based life forms out there.
Matt, I don't think that's going to happen, mate.
And Mark too, I suspect. So here they are. I'm going to go through the top 12 in reverse order. But lastly, before I do, one disclaimer. This is only the cars we've reviewed so far. There are plenty of important cars we haven't done yet, and some I expect would do very well. I'm thinking, of course, Mazda MX-5, Golf GTI, Toyota 86, Subaru WRX. We absolutely need to do these cars. And also, considering we're Australian, how about some classic Aussie muscle cars? How about a Club Sport, or a Falcon GT, or an FPV? They all need to be in the mix, and we will get to them. Okay, so here we go. The top 12 all-round bang-for-your-buck cars we've reviewed so far. Starting with, at number 12, Nissan GT-R R35. Not the most powerful, but the most brutal acceleration, and the only car to go sub 3 seconds 0 to 100. In performance terms, if not in feel, it's a genuine rival to the Porsche Turbo at a fraction of the price. Even at 15 years old though, it's not cheap, but it remains a monument to Japanese ingenuity. So it makes the list, and rightly so. And the Porsche Turbo, nowhere to be seen. Number 11, this old BMW Z3 2.8. Bit of a surprise. That sweet BMW 6-cylinder motor is smooth, but not particularly powerful, and it's not a hardcore sports car, but it's cheap. Manual gearbox, an automatic roof, and as an all-round unpretentious fun weekend car, yes, it does make sense. Number 10, not surprised to find the Tommy Mäkinen Evo 6. If you're into your JDM stuff, it's hard not to like any of these early all-wheel drive Evos and Subaru WRXs. A lot have been tweaked up in the horsepower department, of course, which is not necessarily a bad thing, so it doesn't have to be a pristine Tommy Mac like the car we drove. But there are plenty to choose from, and the prices are quite reasonable. Automatics are cheaper, but you know you don't want an automatic. Great cars, especially in the wet. Number 9. I was actually surprised to see this Teutonic Interloper in the mix, but you can't argue with the numbers. I'm not fudging the results here. The elegant but conservative-looking Mercedes CLK 280 Avant-Garde, if you don't mind. We had the sedan, but a convertible might be even better if you have more than 2 people to carry and you like a bit of sunshine. Quite cheap now, at least until something breaks. It's the slowest of these dozen cars, but not by much. It drove better and sounded better than we expected. At number 8, no surprise to see the brawny Ford Mustang with the 5-litre V8, of course. Bags of power, annoys the neighbours, lots of fun. We had the 6-speed manual, but the 10-speed automatic probably suits its character just as well. Heaps of them on the market, not very expensive. The back seat is ridiculous, claustrophobic, and for little kids only, but yeah, sounds good, goes hard, likes a drink, an Aussie bloke's car. What's not to like? Number 7. Seriously good hot hatch time. Hyundai i20N. Fantastic. Manual gearbox, really fun. Practical, good quality, absolutely nothing to fault with this great little car. Unless you're my colleague Andrew, who ordered one about 18 months ago and is still waiting, even though they're popping up second hand now with decent mileage on them. It's on the boat. It's not on the boat. Long periods of silence. Then it was on the boat, but we don't know what happened to it. Oh no, the cat's eaten it. So his dealer communication experience has been woeful, and he still hasn't got the car. And I reviewed the car in terrible weather, and it proved to be very, very good. You won't be disappointed. Number 6, another Mitsubishi Evo. This time the modified Evo 8 we drove. We usually prefer to test unmodified cars, as that's close to what you might be buying, but this one was so nicely done. A moderate capacity increase, blueprinted, more boost, bigger turbo, upgraded suspension and brakes, and it transformed a good all-wheel drive car into a really good all-wheel drive car. Number 5. Guess. Yes, you're right. Hyundai i30N. Almost a second quicker 0 to 100 than the i20N, and being an older model, you can pick up an early one for a similar price to a new i20N. That dual clutch gearbox is fabulous, and like all the Hyundai N cars, it's still covered by warranty when you take it to the track. Lots of things to adjust, and the clever electronic diff gives you heaps of grip. If you want to do the occasional track day, you can't go past one of these Hyundai N cars. Number 4. Now if you like brisk front-wheel drive cars, you can have similar fun without quite so many electronics to help you out in a Renault Megane RS265, or really any of the Megane RS cars. Mark enjoyed this Red Bull edition with the grippy Recaro buckets so much that he bought it, and it's now his daily driver. That should tell you what he thinks of it. It was significantly cheaper and a bit more old school than the Hyundais, and it's a bit stiffer riding too. Being a Renault, it's a bit weird in some ways, and you'll probably need a tame mechanic, but such an enjoyable sporty hot hatch with lots of personality. So now we arrive at the top 3. In the bronze position we have, and this was a bit of a surprise to me, the Mazda RX-8. Unlike the last 4 cars, no turbo, so despite lacking a bit of low-down torque, the on-road acceleration and overall performance is very similar to that Renault Megane, and many will prefer that it's a rear-wheel drive. Yes, a lot of people don't like rotary engines for their sound or their smell or their drinking habits, and there are a lot of misconceptions about their supposed unreliability. A well-serviced rotary is actually a reliable engine. You just have to find one. Now this is an older car that you can quite enjoy punting along with great ergonomics and a lovely gearbox, and they're cheap. And you can even take some medium-sized passengers in the back. The silver medal goes to the aforementioned 20-year-old Renault Clio Sport. Not surprising really, so much fun, so little money. The 2-litre engine's a pearl that comes alive above 5,000 revs and sounds fantastic at $6,500, with a 5-speed manual, go-kart handling, but still with quite a compliant ride, pure hot hatch froggy fun. It really defines bang for your buck, great little car. Seating position and ergonomics are a bit weirdly French. The plastic bits will be sun damaged, things will go wrong, no doubt some electronic bits will give up, but yes, it deserves to be on the list. The main problem now is that they've been discovered and it's hard to find a tidy one that hasn't been tracked or trashed. So if this floats your beret, you might also consider a not so old Peugeot 208 GTI, for example. But the Clio's cool. And so we arrive at the top performer, and this really is not a surprise, and I agree. Good morning.
Really? Got a new car for us to drive today?
Yep, brought the new Tesla finally. I've been talking about it for so long.
Well, you've been banging on about it for months, haven't you? That doesn't look like a Tesla to me, Stu. What have you done?
It's a long story. It's the BMW M135i. Such a fast car with handling and everything to match.
6.3, $7,000, almost.
This one might be 10 years old, but it was so much further ahead in terms of tech than anything else on the list, apart from maybe the Hyundai N cars. The 3-litre 6-pot turbo motor is just epic.
Oh jeez, that is actually savage in third gear, isn't it?
Now it doesn't have to be the F20 hatchback variant that we reviewed. I actually prefer the look of the notchback E82 series that preceded it. Very similar engine and performance, but only a 6-speed auto rather than the brilliant 8-speed ZF that we had in the later car. Doesn't matter. It'll still zoom you to 100 k's in less than 5 seconds. Yes. The earlier car also offered a 6-speed manual, which is delightful. Yes, it's true, of all the cars we have reviewed so far, the BMW 135i, or for that matter the 140i, 235i, or the larger 335i, doesn't matter as long as it's got that motor, all offer huge performance for not a lot of moolah. Engine tuning's easy, with bolt-on mods easily pushing that 320 horsepower up to 400 or 450 or more, whatever you want. Handling, comfort, features, grip, power, and of course it's rear-wheel drive. There are plenty on the market too, going right back to 2006. And you could pick up one for the same money and the same mileage as that Megane RS, for example, but with heaps more performance and heaps more everything. What are the downsides? Well, that N54 or the later N55 motor is stunning, but it's expensive to fix and lots of things can and do go wrong. Oil leaks, injectors are super expensive, fuel pumps, rattly wastegates, so it'll cost you a bit to service. What else to criticise? I guess you could say, some would say the styling is nothing spectacular. But yes, of the cars we have reviewed so far, this Beamer deserves to be at the top of our dirty dozen bang for your buck cars. And look, if you don't agree with the list or think I've used the wrong measurement criteria, whatever, perfectly fine. It's just our 2 bobs worth. And as I said before, there are hundreds of important cars that we haven't done yet, and I hope we'll get to them shortly. So why don't you tell us in the comments the most important cars you think we need to review? Just remember, we're in Australia, so you can say a Dodge Viper, but we can't do a Hellcat. And lastly, if any of these cars appeal to you, if you look at our channel, you'll see a section where they're all listed alphabetically. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.
Good work, Stu.
Thanks, mate. That's something we have in common. We both won at Bathurst. For God's sake, nobody cares, Stu. Stick to the cars.